back to psychology, Gabriel. It seems to be the most efficient answer to your video that I can think of. What is it when a young, fit, healthy, perfectly capable young man standing beneath an apple tree with the apples all over the place and within easy reach, what is it when that young man stops a slightly older guy from going about his business and asks him to pick an apple for him? Psychology wise, what does that reveal to you? Do you think that guy really wants that apple? No. Do you think he likes apples? No. Do you think he wants to smell the apple, examine it up close, taste it for himself? No. There's something else going on, isn't there? It seems to me that what's going on is that young man, and you must remember he's asking in front of witnesses, that's another important part of the analogy. It strikes me that young man is simply trying to give the appearance of somebody who really wants that apple. But it's plain to anyone who actually looks at the situation that the guy isn't lifting his arms, he isn't reaching out at all. And so whatever links I provide, they'll be ignored. And I know they'll be ignored because I gave you a link to the work of Galen, and I'd be willing to bet that you didn't read the whole of that, because it says in there that Galen performed the first cataract operation. So you'd obviously not looked at the Galen article, which gives some of his writings. And of course we don't rest on one site. We look at many sites to try and establish the truth of something. You've not looked into Galen or Hippocrates, otherwise you wouldn't be demanding the proof. You're asking me to pick an apple for you that you're capable of reaching yourself, and I refuse, sir. And I think that's the best way, because anyone looking into this matter, this debate, well, it's not really a debate, this conversation between us, anyone who's serious about the truth can go and look at all the evidence themselves. You're on the internet. What on earth are you asking me to do searches for you for? You keep going on and on and on about the achievements of classical Islam as regards science, while I, in my response to you, and in the original video that you responded to, say quite clearly, although briefly, I'll grant you, obviously you don't have much of an attention span, but I said clearly in that video that Islam once ruled the world in science. Never disputed it. Also, I have found on the subject of that first video that you responded to, I found two great articles by a professor of physics at a Pakistan university agreeing with me in detail and citing numerous examples which I was completely unaware of. They are fantastic articles, and I've linked both of them to that article, Science, the Quran, the Truth, that you took a dislike to now. So you can go and look at them. And as a result of you arguing with me, I've managed to put even more proof onto that video. So you've done your case a disservice. So I've picked some apples for you, and I've handed them to you, and you haven't taken a bite. You've not learned anything. You've not digested something. Your stomach doesn't seem to have much of an ability to digest apples. No, you want to appear to be someone who wants that apple, but you don't really want it because you don't reach out and get it, because it would involve you having to change your mind somewhat. The only proof you'd possibly accept would be going back in a time machine with a knowledge of ancient Arabic. And what would you see? You wouldn't see anything. Neither myself nor anyone else who unfortunately uses the phrase copied from the Greeks really mean to say that the people who compiled the Quran after Muhammad's death went around copying Greek texts. We're not saying that. Are you that unintelligent that you can't realise that that's what we're saying? Do you have to be so literal? Can you not sit down and try and figure out how that information may have come to Muhammad? It's not a case of him going out into the sea and dipping his finger into salt water and then seawater and tasting the difference. He didn't have to do that. Are you saying he had to do that? No, it was the common knowledge of the day. Trade had been going on via the seas for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Are you saying Muhammad never spoke to a sailor? If he was going into his cave and talking to an angel, or he wanted to give the appearance of that, or maybe he believed it if he was mentally ill, he wouldn't have written down the stupidity of the day. He would have spoken to the most intelligent people of the day whenever he encountered them, and he would have learned from them, and he would have repeated that which he heard most often, which had the most reliability, and that includes the writings of Galen and Hippocrates. He didn't have to read any of their work. It was simply the common knowledge of the day. How did it get to him? Word of mouth. And yet you can't see that. It's got to be something miraculous. A student of science saying that. Why? I think you should do a video talking directly to camera, telling us what you know about neuroscience. Because I'm starting to have my doubts that you're actually intelligent enough to be in that field. I don't mean to insult you, but what else am I to say? The apples are there and you're not picking them. You're not able to digest them. You're looking for the worst possible interpretation of everything that people say as a counter-argument, without trying to apply your mind to the times. You're isolated intellectually from a historical perspective, because you're only researching that which backs your own viewpoint. I bet as soon as you realise a website's going to argue something which you don't want to hear, you just simply leave. So I'm not going to pick your apples for you. Anyone who doubts my word can search Galen, the Library of Alexandria, Greek science, Greek scientists, Greek medicine, Persian medicine, because a lot of their medicine came via the Greeks, and that I've seen that from Muslims. You're not trying, you're not lifting a finger. It's plain to anyone on the outside who doesn't have your same bias that that's the case. This is why you can't win converts. The only converts you can win are ignorant people. You're trying to intentionally denigrate Greek society for that purpose, and I honestly think that's conscious. That's something you're doing, because it only works. Your argument only works on the ignorant. You're like a fly trying to block out the view of the mountain of Greek achievement by getting in people's faces, but people only have to go like that and they can see it, and people like me know the mountain's there, and we're not going to accept the word of a fly that it isn't. It's so sad. I mean, there was a guy on YouTube well over a year ago who you remind me of very much, and he almost moved me to tears, but I'm over that now. You're in your own boat. That's your life. Religion will give you some things that I don't have, but you're really being a fool if you think that a historical perspective and a broad scientific understanding doesn't give me something, and that's the something that I want. You want your comfort blanket. The proof that you would accept would involve a time machine, and I was going to say that how I would love to get that time machine and go back with you to the cave where Muhammad supposedly spoke to his angel, and to hide at the back of that cave and to watch you see what actually happened in that cave. At first I looked forward to that as an idea, but now it would be too sad. I realised that what would happen is that we would hear Muhammad walk into the cave. You would think that you were about to see a miracle, a strange glow perhaps, or a conversation of some kind, and you wouldn't. You'd see a man sitting down wondering what he was going to say when he went back out of the cave to talk to those waiting outside, and I'd have to see your face and the confusion there, and that wouldn't be a pretty sight for me. That would be sad. So off you go, lead your life, think your thoughts, but what else is there to say to somebody like you? You're not trying.